All right. We are live for the week ahead tarot and Astro. Let me just take a little bite of my food. Mm, 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 mm. Let me put this away. Wait for the fam to show up. I got my boba today. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be tapping in from around the world. We're going to be talking about the astrology of the week today and pulling some tarot to tap into the energies of this upcoming week. How y'all doing? We did a live yesterday. Good morning. How are you? We did a live yesterday, last night, on the lunar eclipse in Virgo that's coming up tomorrow. That's like the big thing, the big event this week. And I'm going to be posting that on YouTube today. So this and that live that I did yesterday are going to be going up on YouTube with timestamps. Okay. So I did a little overview of how the eclipse is going to be hitting people based on their sign about 40 minutes into the live. So that's going to be time stamped on YouTube today after this live. Okay, I'm gonna work on all that. So, but I hope you guys are all doing well. We got a lot going on right now in the stars. There's a lot going on energetically. We have Mercury retrograde right now. We have a lunar eclipse in Virgo coming up tomorrow. Mars just went into Pisces today. We have a lot of Pisces energy. We were all super excited about excuse me. Oh my gosh. We were all super excited about Saturn leaving Pisces. And here we are now with Mars, North Node, Sun, Mercury, Venus, all in Pisces. I'm gonna go ahead and pop my boba open. I got myself an oolong, roasted oolong milk tea boba with soy milk because we don't do dairy. We're staying away from dairy nowadays. Good morning. Welcome, Jay. What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? So what I was just giving everybody a little bit of an overview about this week is the big features of this week astrologically. This is our second week of Mercury retrograde in Pisces. We had a whole Pisces stellium, and we have a lunar eclipse in Virgo tomorrow on the 3rd, and then we have Mars in Pisces. Mars just went into Pisces today. So that's the big stuff this week. But let's go ahead and pull some cards. Let's tap into the energies of this week. Virgo, Sun, Gemini, Moon, Leo rising, baby, you are getting hit by this eclipse. All right. All the mutable signs. So this eclipse is very important for mutable signs, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag. And for a lot of the mutable signs, they're wrapping up a chapter or they're completing some kind of story or narrative in their life with this eclipse. We've had the eclipses going through Pisces and Virgo all of last year. And from the very end of 2024, the nodes went into Pisces and Virgo and we were having eclipses in Pisces and Virgo. So this lunar eclipse in Virgo that we're having tomorrow is the last eclipse that we have on the Pisces Virgo axis. But the nodes aren't moving into Leo and Aquarius until later this year, right? So the nodes are going to be at 8 degrees um, Pisces and Virgo. South nodes 8 degrees Virgo, north nodes at 8 degrees Pisces. The nodes are always directly opposite of each other and they go backwards. I don't know if you guys knew this. I don't know if you ever noticed, but the nodes in your own chart and the nodes in the sky, they move in the opposite direction of the planets. So while the planets are going one direction, the nodes are going the opposite direction. So the nodes actually start off at 29 degrees when they ingress into a sign, and then they go to 1 degree, 0 degrees once they're about to enter a new sign. The north node is going to be moving into Aquarius, and the south node is going to be moving into Leo, and that happens later this year. Yeah, around August. Yeah, August, September. But that's gonna really plunge us because that August, September period this year is gonna be eclipse season again. It's gonna be around Leo season, right? Because it's the nodes are gonna be on the axis of Leo and Aquarius, right? So we're gonna be having the Leo Aquarius eclipses. So the fixed signs, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, the nodes are going to be moving through your guys' life, especially Leo and Aquarius are going to be feeling that nodal shift later this year. All right. So yeah, so going back to my original point, this is a very important eclipse for Pisces and Virgo and Gemini and Sag people. Very, very important. Excuse me. I took a bite of food and I think I had like a piece of rice that went down the wrong pipe or something. So So yeah, so we're seeing a lot of endings and beginnings, right? With people ending a chapter, beginning a chapter. Look what Meg said right here. Yes, for closing out a chapter. I'm moving next week for the first time in 13 years. I think Meg is a cardinal rising. I think Meg is a Libra rising. And so for cardinal signs, Libra, Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, we're seeing a lot of the cardinal signs make big moves, foundational moves this year. So committing to a career, committing to marriage, getting engaged, buying a home, committing to something long term. I was talking about this with the eclipse when I was talking about the eclipse yesterday, when I was going over cardinal signs, Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn. I was talking about how Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn in Aries is getting the cardinal signs to move this year and like make some big foundational commitments or big foundational changes. And where they're kind of like growing up, and that's going to be a big thing for cardinal signs this year, particularly Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, and Libra. Like you're growing up, you're maturing, you're stepping into your career, stepping into purpose, you're reaping the rewards, your hard work, things like this. It's going to be a big thing. But anyways, all right, enough about that. Let's go ahead and pull cards for the week. You guys are going to have me sitting here going on tangents all day, okay? Let's keep it focused. Focus up. Let's wait for this caffeine to kick in. All right, Spirit, give us a little bit of insight into the energy of this week. We got a lot going on right now, Spirit. We understand that. We know that there's just a lot of transition, a lot of change, but give us some guidance, give us some insight into the energies of this week. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's take a look and see what we got going on. What we got going on? What's Spirit going to show us? Spirit, lead me where my fear can relate stronger. Oh my God, I butchered that. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you may call me. Take me deeper than my fear could ever falter, so my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. You guys know that song? So we got the Temperance card, and then we got the Nine of Swords in reverse. We got to talk about stress and anxiety this week and kind of managing our nervous system. And this makes a lot of sense that the Nine of Swords would be coming out. This is the Nightmare card. So I don't know if you guys know this card for those of you that do tarot or you're learning tarot, you want to know more about tarot. Well, this is called the Nightmare card. So we can see this is a woman in bed waking up from a nightmare, from a bad dream, and she is plagued, right? So this card has a lot to do with paranoia, anxiety, sleeplessness, not being able to rest, like a really uneasy mind. Okay, that's what the Nine of Swords is about. And so when it comes out in reverse, this tells me that this week, and this makes so much sense with the eclipses, there may be paranoias, anxieties, fears that are revealed to you or that like seep up from the nether realms within you in some type of way that you have to confront. And you have to dispel the illusion that you have around this fear, this anxiety, this paranoia. This can also be about sadness and grief, I'm hearing as well. This can also be about just heavy emotional energy, depression, sadness, grief. Also, the energy of like disappointment or frustration from others or feeling upset or let down by others. There's this energy of seeing how this heavy thing that you've been carrying or that you've been stressing out about or that you've been worried about. Oh my God, I'm so worried. I'm so stressed out. I'm so anxious. I'm so paranoid. Or I'm so sad. I feel so heavy. I'm so, right? It's like we got to dispel that. We got to release that. We got to move through that and realize that it's an illusion. And this has a lot to do with the Mercury retrograde in Pisces, right? And all this Pisces energy. Mars in Pisces, the Sun in Pisces, Venus in Pisces, right? We have Saturn and Neptune together. Saturn is a planet of reality. Neptune is a planet of fantasy and delusion, right? Um, we have Saturn, Neptune conjunct in the sky right now. They're both at 1 degree. So with this, it's kind of like we need to have an increased amount of discernment. That makes so much sense because we have a lunar eclipse in Virgo this week, and Virgo is a sign of discernment, of seeing things clearly and accurately, where Pisces is the sign of illusion, right? And things that are not real, like smoke and mirrors, mirages. That's a Pisces thing. Where Virgo is like, this is it. This is really what it's about. And I really kind of feel like what this week is inviting us to do, and even what this tarot spread is saying, is like we got to move through the illusions of fear, of anxiety, paranoia. We got to move through the like the grief and the sadness and the heaviness to get to the promised land. Ten of Pentacles in reverse. To get to, this is one of my favorite cards in the deck, the Ten of Pentacles. This is a card of abundance. This is a card of success, of fortune. This is a card of karmic reward as well, like celebration. And it's a really a family card for me. The Ten of Pentacles is a family card. It has a lot to do with family success, abundance in the family, even like sometimes generational wealth, things like this come through with the Ten of Pentacles. But the Ten of Pentacles in reverse, or the Nine of Swords in reverse, tells us that many of us are worried about security. We're worried about money right now. We're worried about work. We're worried about our career. We're worried about our family. We're worried about our health. We're worried about a lot of real world material things: the body, health, money, safety, security, stability. And we are moving through a period of global societal instability. Nowhere and nothing and nobody is safe right now, right? And I feel like we, even like in the 2000s and the 90s, we have this energy of feeling safe. Like there was like, I don't know. I think collectively it was a safer time. And we're in this space right now where there is no safety, there's no security, there's no stability, and there's no like abundance. Like we, with nothing feels abundant right now. Like everything feels expensive, everything feels costly. To do anything, to go on vacation, to buy a house, to get a car, it's like it's all too much. It feels like everything costs like an arm and a leg, you know? And so there's this energy of lack. There's this huge energy of lack that is around right now. And that's creating a lot of fears and anxieties around security and stability. So there's a feeling of not being safe. Okay. And the Temperance card coming out as the first card tells us that we need to be patient with this process of change and transformation. We need to be patient with understanding that there's a divine plan that's unfolding, not only globally, societally, politically, and culturally, but also within our own life. And we need to lean into faith. And this is one of the things that Pisces season calls us to: temperance, faith, optimism, positivity, right? Patience. Like I really think of the Temperance card as like it's like the heavenly virtue card to me, you know? And like we got the peace lilies on there. Look at this. We got the lilies in the back, you know? You see the lilies right here and the reeds. And what I love about the Temperance card is this is Archangel Gabriel. So the Temperance card, this archangel, because all the archangels are on the in the tarot. I don't know if you guys realize this. For those of you guys that mess with the cards or that do tarot, there's a lot of biblical reference in the tarot. A lot. And when I tell you like half of the tarot deck, if not, at least 60% of the cards are referencing something religious or something out of the Bible, you will find all the angels in the tarot. Okay. And this is Archangel um, Gabriel. Or no, this is Archangel Raphael. This is Raphael. Did I say Raphael? You guys hold me accountable, okay? But this is the Archangel of healing. Ooh, excuse me. This is the Archangel of healing and alchemical transmutation. And what's interesting is this is the tarot card, the major arcana card that's also associated with Sagittarius and the energy of Jupiter. And to me, this is also a card of divine protection and divine intervention. And I really do think, we need to be open and receptive this week and during this period, this eclipse period, to like the divine messaging, to the dreams, to what spirit is telling us, to what our intuition is telling us, to what our ancestors, what our altar, we need to like really tune into our spirit guides this week because to me, this spread is telling us, is reminding us, is a big reminder for the collective that we are all being divinely guided and divinely led, but we need to tap in, right? We need to give ourselves permission to connect and be open and receptive to the messages that are coming from the beyond and things like this, okay? And so with the Temperance card, if you are in a moment of insecurity, a moment of a lack of safety, in a moment where, stability is not a thing right now, you're searching for some kind of stability, but you just can't find your footing, just be patient. This spread is really saying that we are in a collective moment of transition and we need to lean in. Hermit card on the bottom of the deck to our spirit, and it's interesting because with the Hermit card, this is the card of Virgo. This is the card, the major arcana card that is connected to the sign of Virgo, the Hermit. And this is also the energy of nine, right? This is the energy of nine as well, right? This is a nine card. And the energy of nine is about endings and completion. And it makes so much sense that we'd have the Hermit card, a nine card, the Nine of Swords, another nine card, come out on a week when we're having a lunar eclipse in Virgo, because this lunar eclipse in Virgo is at a Pisces degree. It's conjunct right next to, not exactly conjunct, but within like 4 degrees of the South Node, which is about loss and surrender and purging and releasing of things and letting go of things. So this makes a lot of sense that this spread would be telling us there's something deep and profound that we may have to release or surrender this week. And it can be an emotional attachment, it can be grief, it can be a fear, a paranoia, anxiety, something that's been blocking us for a long time that we've been holding on to. And now we need to release it and heal it. We need to like transmute it in some type of way, alchemize it, turn that pain into power, right? Turn that pain into creativity, turn that sadness and that grief and that loss into love. This is the alchemical process. This is what alchemy looks like. It's how we shift energy within us. We turn negative energy into positive energy. And there's a lot of beautiful ways to do that. And I want you guys to think about that this week, okay? How can I shift my perspective on something? How can I turn a bad or negative situation into something good, right? Or even, let's say you want to fix or heal something, right? You want to repair something, either, with somebody, within yourself, something like this. Go about it a different way. Engage in conversation a different way. Try something new, try something different. Mercury is retrograde right now, right? So when I think of Mercury retrograde, we're so used to going through the front door. Maybe it's time to try the back door. Try knocking on someone's door in a different way. It's okay. Like, retrograde periods are periods of trial and error. And I think so many of us, we have deep fears and insecurities around making a mistake or doing something wrong or failing. So we never try. We never do. We never give it a shot or give it a chance. And I think this is also why so many people have a lot of insecurity around learning as well. Like we haven't really cultivated the process of learning new things, right? We're very insecure about learning, about the experience of learning or being a student. And when we have that, right? Like when we are afraid of growth, of learning, of absorbing, of evolving, and things like this, we really betray ourselves and we keep ourselves stuck and we limit ourselves, right? And I think this is a beautiful time to really grow, grow beyond the confines of your own life, outgrow, like shed your skin that has been like, I think about like when like a snake, or a scorpion or whatever, when they grow, they molt. Even a crab, right? When they grow, they molt. They literally like shed a whole layer of skin because they outgrow the shell that they've been in, right? And I think many of us need that. We need this molting process. We need to go through this molting process. But it's also incredibly ugly and painful. That's another thing I want you guys to understand. You know, growth is not easy. Molting, even when you look at an animal going through a molting, like they're like it's painful. It's difficult. So yeah, give yourself grace. Um, the tarot this week is telling us to conquer our fears and overcome our paranoias and not give into the insecurities or the anxiety or the paranoia. That's really like the big message is like it's all in the mind. Like it's the fears, most of your fears are not even real. Most of your paranoias, most of the things that you're afraid of, most of the things that, go bump in the night, baby, those aren't even real. Okay. And yes, 10 of Pentacles in reverse, we are in a period of instability, insecurity, there's no sense of safety. And we got to kind of be patient with this process though, because I don't think change is meant to feel safe. I think those things are opposite of each other. I think change and safety are in opposition to each other. Okay. One is like very, change is a very like Jupiter Mercury thing, and safety and security is like a Saturn Venus thing. And those two energies, they don't go well together. Change is not safe, and it's never going to be, and it shouldn't be, right? And this is where we have to like be more courageous and brave. Okay. Okay. I love that for us. I love that for us. But I will say, my loves, we're going to talk about this right now as we dive into the astrology. We are in a period of endings and rupturing, you know, the pin breaking the camel's back, the trigger on the gun getting pulled, the ignition being lit. So, one of the things you'll notice from last week, and even it's going to be this week as well, is situations where there's been a buildup of pressure and we feel like there's a big moment, a tower moment coming, a moment of collapse, a moment of conflict, where it's like pressure's been building and the volcano is going to explode. A lot of these scenarios, like there's a lot of this energy right now where if there's a volcano in your life, okay, this energy's triggering it. This energy is blowing the cap off the volcano. Okay. It's revealing everything. All this shit is coming to the surface. All the lava, all the pain, all the anger, all the rage, all the hurts, all the resentments, all the bullshit, all the secrets and lies. Okay. All the lies and deception. Okay. And all these things are coming to the surface. And we need to let this shit explode. Let me tell you. We need to let it, we need to let it like so many of us, we when we could see it coming. That's the other interesting thing is like a lot of times when we are in a situation, stuck in a situation of impending doom or impending conflict or impending confrontation, we could see it coming, we could feel it. Like, oh, 2 days from now, oh, next week, oh, today, just something about today feels a little different. And going to work, bam, all of a sudden you get in that argument, you get in that fight with that coworker, it blows up. Next thing you know, you're talking to your manager, you guys are having a joint meeting with the manager, right? We can feel energetically when these moments are about to like culminate and about to explode. We get insight into it. We do have an intuitive feeling about these things, right? But a lot of times what we do is we deny it or avoid it, or we try to contain it. So we're like, "Ugh," we try to keep the lid on. We're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna pretend like, and then it ends up finding us anyways, right? And this has a lot to do with Mars right now. We have this Uranus Mars square last Thursday, right? Uranus 28 degrees, 27 degrees. Hold on, wait. 27 degrees. Mars hit 27 degrees Aquarius. The eclipse point, the solar eclipse on Aquarius point was at 28 degrees Aquarius, right? So that Mars Uranus square that we had just past this past Thursday triggered the eclipse point that we had 2 weeks ago, right? But now Mars has gone into Pisces. But what's interesting is there's Mars and Uranus are still in a square. It's a separating square. So Mars is moving closer to Uranus and moving past that square with Uranus, but we still have this energy. And Mars is the planet of conflict and war and anger and rage. And Uranus is the planet of sudden rupturing, the tipping of the scales, the pulling of the trigger, the releasing of the energy, right? So what Uranus does with things, when there's built up tension or energy, Uranus goes around and he's like, okay, pop, release it. Okay, pop, release it. So this is why Uranus is connected to lightning, right? And thunder, because there, lightning and thunder and things like this, it's like when electricity or energy builds up to a certain amount, it needs release, right? And that's what Uranus does. He releases energy that's built up. And with Uranus Mars, right? It's Mars separating from the square with Uranus, we may be seeing this week. We've been seeing it last week. You know, the day of the Mars Uranus square was when the United States and Israel attacked Iran. Okay, that was on Thursday going into Friday. And so there's this releasing, this buildup of pressure and releasing of energy. We need to take notice of this in our own life. You know, we can feel compelled to address something this week. We can want to, go into conflict and go to war for ourselves and stand up for ourselves. And there can be some kind of injustice that we want to hold someone accountable and things like this, right? We're feeling this kind of energy of like, or other people can like project that on us. And we need to be very aware of this. We need to be very aware of this energy this week, this separation from Mars square Uranus, especially the first half this week as we're going into the eclipse tomorrow. Okay. Very, very important. The other thing this week, when it comes to astrology, is we're in the fog of our Mercury retrograde in Pisces. And this Mercury retrograde in Pisces is a little bit more messy. It's a little bit more confusing. It's a little bit more unorganized. But what it's doing is it's having us reflect on things emotionally and spiritually. Okay. As having us take a look at things from the past that we've emotionally invested in or that we're emotionally attached to, where there needs to be some kind of closure or release, or there needs to be some kind of healing and forgiveness and completion. Okay. And this energy is doubled down right now. It's kind of doubled down. The Mercury retrograde in Pisces, and it's like going back to the past and, reminiscing about the past or emotions of the past coming back and things like this, even things going back to childhood and stuff, because the Mercury retrograde in Pisces is in a trine with Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. So it's not just the Mercury retrograde in Pisces that's bringing us back to, emotional thoughts and, feeling very sensitive and, having to look at our victim complex and look at our woe is me things or the things that we're sad about. But the Jupiter retrograde in Cancer is taking us to our childhood. It's having us think about our relationship with our parents, their mother and our father, with our family. It's having us take a look at our roots, our foundation, and things that are very private or sacred to us that are hidden that we don't share with others coming to the surface, coming out. Us wanting to talk about these things, us wanting to share these things, us wanting to do some healing about these things, right? And I even think the combination of the Mercury retrograde in Pisces, like trining that Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, this week, because Jupiter's about to go direct. Jupiter's going direct in a few weeks. So what's interesting is I think Jupiter goes direct actually next week. Let me see. Hold on. I think he goes direct around the 10th or the 11th. Let me see. If I'm chewing, it's because I'm chewing on little chewy boba balls. Yep, on the 10th. So Jupiter goes direct from the 9th to the 10th, and then Mercury goes direct 10 days after. So Mercury goes direct around the 19th to 20th. Right at the end of Pisces season, Mercury goes direct in Pisces. And we're out of our Mercury retrograde, but we're still going to be in recovery, right? Mercury has to retrace his steps once he goes direct. We're still going to be in his shadow period, kind of, even when he goes direct. So the energy of this week, right? With Jupiter, this is his like last full week of him being retrograde in Cancer, in combination with Mercury retrograde in Pisces. Um, there's this energy of before we go forward, we got to go backward. We got to take a look at our spiritual foundation. We got to take a look at our emotions. We got to take a look at, our needs, what we need emotionally, what we need spiritually. And the lunar eclipse in Virgo this week, tomorrow, is having us take a look at our habits, our behaviors, our routines, our work, like the day-to-day things that we're doing, right? But there could be some kind of disorganization or some kind of rupturing of routines right now. South node things, right? In Virgo, the South node in Virgo, the lunar eclipse in Virgo, people losing jobs, people's routines suddenly changing, people getting sick, getting ill. It's like a big theme. It's going to be a big theme with this lunar eclipse in Virgo tomorrow. And these are things I just want you guys to be mindful of. I want you to be aware of, okay? Because we're not going to be able to get away from this energy. We're right in the thick of it. We're in the thick of eclipse season. We're in between eclipses. We have our second eclipse coming up tomorrow, right? Eclipses are times of tremendous change, you know, shifts with fate and fortune, you know, forward movement, doors opening, doors closing, us moving away from things, us moving towards things. Very fast, right? That's another thing. Typically, eclipses are like speed up time or warp time. And if you've been feeling like time is a little warped, it's because Mercury's retrograde in Pisces while we're going through an eclipse season. Okay, so that's why. Time is just a really funky, weird thing right now, and you want to be mindful of time, being late to things, forgetting also appointments, stuff like this. It's been a very big pattern. With like certain people, showing up late to work, or people calling out because they're sick, because they're ill, stuff like that. That's like a really big theme right now during this eclipse season, and it will be a big theme this week. Okay, so just want you guys to be mindful about it, right? But okay, let's talk about the astrology though. Okay, so what's something else I want to talk about? I want to talk about Mars and Pisces. Let me see. So Mars in Pisces is going to be important for the mutable signs. It can be causing a little bit of friction though. So Mars is ingress into Pisces. If you are a Pisces, Gemini, Sag, or Virgo, Mars is probably going to light a fire up under your ass while he's there for the next 6 weeks. But he's transiting Pisces. You might feel more impassioned, more inspired, more irritated. You can experience a little bit of a point of, there may be some conflict. The mutable signs may not be their, peachy, happy-go-lucky selves. You may see them being a little bit more irritable and stuff like this because Mars is going through Pisces, a water sign, and it's going to be either squaring them, conjuncting them, opposing them, right? For mutable signs. But you want to take a look at your Pisces house because there's a lot going on with our Pisces house this week and like right now. Mercury's retrograde in our Pisces house. We have Sun, North Node, Venus all in our Pisces house, and now Mars is in Pisces, right? So there's a lot going on with our Pisces house. So you definitely want to take a look at your Pisces house this week and also your Virgo house because that's where the eclipse is happening. Okay. But yeah, so Mars in Pisces, this can be about spiritual war, really, or us arguing or fighting about our beliefs or feeling very impassioned by our beliefs. Watch out for nightmares and bad dreams too. Now that Mars is in Pisces, that could be a theme. Issues with water, stuff like this. So water leaks, water pipes bursting, um, plumbing issues. That's been a big theme. That's been coming up for a lot of people, and I think it's because we have this Mercury retrograde in Pisces in combination with Jupiter and Cancer. So literally like things under the ground, especially water, like rupturing. Um, I actually was talking to my one of my best friends yesterday, and on Thursday, the day of the Uranus Mars square, she was cleaning a pane. It's like a glass pane that's like a divider in her that comes from her fridge. And she was like clean. She took it out of the fridge and was cleaning it. It's like this big glass pane, and it ruptured. It just exploded into like a billion pieces, like out of nowhere. She was like, "How did this happen? What the heck?" But it was the day of the Uranus Mars square because Uranus has a lot to do with breaking things, the rupturing of things, especially like broken glass or things falling or tripping. Us tripping or falling or things falling on us. That's another Uranus thing, People falling from high places, things falling on us from high places, accidents, things like this. So I want you guys to be very aware of this energy. Okay. Someone said my dishwasher is playing up, won't drain the water. Yeah. There's like a lot of people are gonna be having plumbing issues and stuff like that, this week. This Mercury retrograde in Pisces. All right. Um, Another thing I will say with Mars and Pisces, Mars is gonna be conjoining the North Node, not this week, but next week. But with Mars going into Pisces, they're already within like 7 degrees of each other this week. Mars is the planet of desire and passion, and the North Node has a lot to do with desire, but like insatiable desire, like consumption. Okay. So with Mars and the North Node coming together in Pisces, we may see an intensification of desire energy, of insatiable energy. Like any kind of cravings that you get, whether it be food cravings, gambling cravings, drug cravings, I don't know, sugar cravings, whatever kind of cravings you get, okay? Those are going to be exacerbated going into next week, but we're going to start feeling it this week, especially the later half of this week as Mars and the North Node come closer together. May also be an intensification or exacerbation of violent people and violent things and violent thoughts and like violent energy or very destructive energy. I want you guys to just be very aware of this, not only within yourself, but with others, okay? Especially if you know that there's like troubled people. And the person that I'm really thinking of, and I was talking about them yesterday during the Eclipse Live. I'm thinking about Shia LaBeouf. I think Shia LaBeouf is all of us right now in some type of way. And Shia LaBeouf is a Gemini Sun, Aquarius rising. He's got a lot of mutable energy though. He's got Uranus and Sag, Saturn and Sag. She's got Jupiter and Pisces. He's a Gemini Sun, so he's very mutable. But he's an Aquarius rising and with the Leo Moon. Okay, he has a Leo Moon, Aquarius rising. And the man is on like a 3 week bender. He like relapsed and he is just not doing he's not doing well. He's just in shambles. He's a mess. And there's a lot of like vulnerability and woundedness that is coming up for him. And I don't know if you guys have been seeing bits and pieces of the interview that he did on with Channel 5 in New Orleans, but he's being very vulnerable and very honest, but it's also very difficult, very hard to watch because he's such in a broken state right now, you know? And Pisces is the sign of brokenness, Pisces is the sign of prisoners, it has a lot to do with those that are affiliated gangs, secret societies, things, people that get ostracized or left out. And one of the fascinating things that he says, because he's an Aquarius rising, right? Is he's like, I always just want to belong. He's like, he says this, he made this statement where he's like, I really want to I want to feel a part of like a community. I want to feel like I belong to something bigger or something greater than me. But then I always feel ostracized or left out, or I always feel like, I'm not of that, or like I don't belong. It's like this deep intrinsic conflict that he has between craving a deep sense of like belonging, collection, and connection, but always feeling like the outsider and the outcast. And I think this is a very Aquarius rising thing. I think it's a very Aquarius thing. They're like the friend to everyone, but then also they don't feel like anybody gets them or sees them or understands them. And I think this is a very Pisces Aquarius thing. I think Pisces and Aquarius, they both share some of that sentimentality in some type of way, right? And I want you guys to be very aware of this right now with all this Pisces energy in the air, this energy of kind of like victimization and loneliness and like isolation, and also kind of like self-destruction and self-sabotage. Okay. Mercury retrograde. Pisces is a sign of self-undoing and self-destruction. Okay. And this is what, right? When you see someone on the streets and they've lost their consciousness to drugs. They're just a shell. They're not even a person anymore. They don't even know their name anymore. They have no memory. They can't even talk, right? Like when you see these, right? That's Pisces. Literally the destruction of the self. Pisces is associated with prisons, it's associated with prisoners, it's associated with hospitals, it's associated with the homeless, and it's also associated with escapism and drug addiction. Okay. And so when we have a Mercury retrograde in Pisces, a stellium in Pisces, North Node, Mars, Sun, Venus, and Pisces, we need to take a look at the ways that we self-destruct, the ways that we self-sabotage, the ways that we, undo ourselves. And we do it in a lot of different ways. It can be habits and behaviors, it can be thoughts, it can be emotions, it can be a certain way that we feel about ourselves or a certain way that we see ourselves. It could be a personality, identity thing, right? There's a lot of ways that we undo ourselves. And this Mercury retrograde in Pisces and this Pisces season and all this Pisces energy in the sky right now really wants us to be like, wait a minute, can you actually choose a path of redemption? Can you actually choose a path of, you know, spiritual purpose, spiritual meaning? Can you choose a path of surrender? Can you choose a path of spiritual solitude or spiritual fortitude or discipline, right? There's a lot of things that we have to take a look at this week during this Mercury retrograde period, during this Pisces season, where it's like, if we're doing any of the Shia LaBeouf stuff, the self-sabotaging, self-destructive behaviors, we got to take a look at that. We got to be honest with that. And then we got to be like, wait a minute, can I do something different? Can I be better? You know? And like we've seen, I don't know if you guys have been noticing or paying attention, but there's been a lot of people offing themselves. Like, trigger warning, but there's been a lot of people committing suicide. It's been all up in the news, young and old, like not just, it's just people from all backgrounds. And this is Pisces. This is part of the self-undoing aspect of Pisces. One of the people that I always think about who is just such an archetype of Pisces is Kurt Cobain. It's Kurt Cobain, you know? And it's like someone with so much talent and who's so tender and soft, actually. I don't know if any of you guys, have watched interviews with Kurt Cobain, but he was this incredibly sensitive, soft-hearted, tender guy, right? So it's and too sensitive for the world, but look at the mute, but he had so much trauma. He had went through so much. And he had very self-destructive, addictive tendencies. He had Scorpio placements. I do think he was a Scorpio moon. He was like all water. He was Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. I think he was like Cancer rising, Pisces sun, Scorpio moon or something. Let me see. Hold on. No. Oh, no, he's a Virgo rising. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. With the whole Pisces stellium. Oh, my bad. Pisces stellium, Cancer moon, Virgo rising, and then Scorpio. He had South Node, Neptune, Mars, and Scorpio. I knew there was Scorpio energy that he had because the tortured artist is such a Pisces Scorpio thing. Someone said, and Kurt's undoing was an evil Cancerian. I'm gonna have to disagree with that. Same with Sheila Buff. I don't think it's I don't think it's others that are the problem with these men. I think these men have deep-seated issues. Kurt Cobain, deep-seated issues. Also, Shia LaBeouf, deep-seated issues from childhood that they project on their partners or that get triggered in relationship because both of them have really heavy love karma, really bad love karma, you know? And people want to say, oh, yeah, you know, he might have been murdered, but that's not what his chart says. His chart says that he offed himself. Okay. And he has a chart that is very suicidal. Same thing with Shia LaBeouf. And if you watch the Shia LaBeouf interview, he's literally talking about a moment where he had a gun to his head, where he was going to off himself. Okay? Because both of these men have charts that where they make impulsive decisions, or they do things extreme, they make extreme self-destructive impulsive decisions. And sometimes that looks like offing themselves, right? It all stems from childhood. And this is why, like, we got to be very cautious of blaming other people because as spiritually grounded and spiritually aware people, we know that we have a everyone is unto themselves. Everybody's responsible for themselves, right? At the end of the day. And we all, at the end of the day, make choices and decisions that impact other people. And we want to blame others for the decisions and choices that we make, but that's not the truth. The truth and the fact is that it always stems from the self in some type of way, right? A relationship can be a trigger, but there's so many things that can be a trigger for people like this. People like Kurt Cobain and Sheila Buff. Um, a moment of failure, a moment of disgrace, a moment of shame can also trigger them. A moment of sudden disruption or something being taken away from them, like a child being taken away from them losing a job, something like that, can trigger. Um, can trigger them. So it's not just love and partnerships. There's multiple triggers, but the thing about it, the core wound and the core issue is that there's like some deep psychological, woundedness that they have around themselves, around their identity, around their ego, around their behavior, around their masculinity. around, their body, their sex, right? Like, or even like not their sex, but desire energy, like sexual energy, A lot of these guys, I think Shia LaBeouf and maybe even Kurt Cobain were molested, and they dealt with sexual abuse, Kurt Cobain sexual abuse. Let me see. I think he did deal with sexual abuse, actually, Kurt Cobain. Yep, right here. That Kurt experienced sexual abuse as a child. Anyways, the reason why I'm talking about this is because with all this Pisces energy, we need to like be very aware of the ways that we self-destroy, we self-destruct, and the ways that we self-sabotage. And a lot of those habits and behaviors are rooted in trauma, and fear and paranoia. And we respond with self-destructive behavior because we don't truly love ourselves or view ourselves clearly or give ourselves that compassion and that forgiveness, right? And when we're talking about a lunar eclipse in Virgo, we're also talking about having to confront things around shame, things that we're ashamed of. Virgo, is the sign of perfection. And I think the axis of Virgo and Pisces has a lot to do with the illusion Pisces of perfection, Virgo. And we all want to be the best and do the best, and we all want to like put our best foot forward. We want to believe that we are these like great, wonderful people, but we're actually not. We're very broken. We're very fragmented. We have a lot of trauma. We have a lot of fear. We have a lot of shadows, we have a lot of secrets, there's a lot of things that we're carrying, a lot of burdens that we're carrying. And we want to just pretend like, oh no, we're all good and everything's great. But no, it's like the energy of Pisces compels us to look deeply at the shadow, right? I think Pisces and Scorpio are signs that are connected to shadow work, because Pisces is 12th house energy, right? It has a lot to do with, the deep shadows that we don't see. And it's so fascinating to me because Pisces energy, because the 12th house, right, is connected to Pisces and it doesn't aspect the rising. It also has a lot to do with elements of the self, of ourselves that we don't see. So there's certain ways that other people see us, or certain ways that we are blind to, that we cannot see. Sometimes we can't see that we are being envious or jealous, right? But we're noticing all around us, but we can't see our own envy, our own jealousy, right? Sometimes we can't see our own arrogance, our own pride. You know what I mean? Because we're like, wait a minute, I can't see myself in a bad light. I'm such a good person. So we blind ourselves to the shadows of arrogance, of jealousy, of possessiveness, of control, of even like abuse and neglect, right? A lot of us, we give ourselves permission to be abusive out of some kind of injustice or sense of righteousness that we're like that we like convince ourselves of, right? Well, that person did this to me, so it was okay for me to slit their tires and to bust their windows and to steal from them and to do all this to them, right? Because this person did this to me, or because, this society did this to me, or the president did this to me, so I can do it. Like we find ways to validate, these darker parts about our personality and even behaviors and decisions and choices that we make that are very harmful, right? And I think this has a lot to do with the delusion of the ego and how the self-sabotaging aspect of the 12th house sometimes is about the shadow aspects of the personality that we don't want to confront, that we avoid, or that we just totally bypass, or that we're blind to. We can't even see within ourselves. And so I think it's important this week, with this Mercury retrograde in Pisces, that we, in this, Pisces season, that we really take a deep look at our shadows. We take a look at the things that we've been running away from or avoiding. And sometimes it's about just asking for honest feedback from the people around you. When's the last time that you asked someone like, how do you think I could be better? How do you think I could do better? You know what I mean? Um, and where we're open to constructive criticism, because Virgo is a sign of criticism, right? Anybody have any Virgo parents or Virgo family members or Virgo lover? Tell you one thing. They're always going to remind you of what you can be doing better. They're always going to nitpick something, okay? There's always some mode of self-improvement that they have for you. There's always a plan of self-improvement that they have for you in some type of way or some feedback that they'll give you, whether it's warranted or unwarranted, right? And it's funny because it comes off as like sometimes them being rude or them being mean or them being judgy, but it's actually because they know what you're capable of. They know your potential, right? And Virgo wants to see the world as this perfect thing. And it's funny because sometimes I think Virgo projects this idea, or they feel upset and irritated by the lack of others meeting their expectations, right? And they project this idea of perfection onto their lives or onto others, or this expectation. And this is why so many Virgos are pissed off and disappointed because they're mad that the world isn't perfect. At the end of the day, what Virgo is mad about, they're mad that the world isn't perfect. That's what they're mad about. They're mad that everything is not like organized and structured and like clean and like simple. And they're mad about it. Okay? They're mad about it. That's the truth. And with the South Node and the lunar eclipse in Virgo, we have to collectively let go of this delusion of perfection. The delusion, Mercury retrograde in Pisces, of perfection. Virgo. Everything is already perfect. That's the divine revelation. Everything is as it should be. Everything is already perfect. That's the truth. If it was meant to be other than what it is, it would be that way. But it's not. Therefore, the way it is perfect. But it is organized. You can't see it. See, we can't see it from our human minds, from our little small human perspective, right? The world looks chaotic and the world looks very unorganized. But go look at the stars, go look at the planets. They are on a set orbital path. And there is a karmic divine order to everything. You can't see it. You're blind to it. I can see it, right? Everything is divinely organized already. All you got to do is look to the stars and the planets to be reminded of that. Everything's already perfect. But it's our limited human perspective that doesn't allow us to see this perfection, this divine organization, right? And that's why we got to let go of the perfectionism. Because let me tell you what perfectionism does. Perfectionism is actually a deep insecurity around safety. And it's also perfectionism is also rooted in this false idea that you have full agency or control over your life. Because Virgo loves control. Virgo is a sign that loves control. Same with Capricorn. This is what Capricorn and Virgo have in common. Okay? They love control. And the saddest thing for Virgo is them waking up to realize that they actually have very little control in their life. But don't confuse control with agency. Those are very different things. Agency is about action, it's about doing, it's about intention, it's about purpose, it's about meaning. We have a lot of agency in our life, but we don't have a lot of control. Control is about structure and organization and sameness. And it's a frustration and it's demand, but it's also rooted in deep insecurity and paranoia and fear of change and fear of difference. You know, control gives us a false sense of safety and security. And the irony with control, and this is what Virgo and Capricorn need to learn, and this is what we should be thinking about with this lunar eclipse in Virgo, right? Because we're letting go of some shit around Virgo things. Control, the more that we try to control things, the less control that we actually have over the thing. And that's the irony. That's the way the universe and God and the divine laughs at us. Because you're like trying to keep it all together. You're like, oh, you gotta control this. And then all of a sudden it just explodes out of your hands, right? Have you guys ever had that where you have like you picked up like a bundle of something, like you got a bundle of sticks or you got a bundle of whatever, right? You picked it up and you're like trying to contain it, and all of a sudden all of it just like it just gets you just drop it all at once, right? That's like the irony of it all, right? It's like the more you try to contain, the more you try to carry, the more you try to hold, the more you try to like demand, and the more you try to force, it's natural for that thing to give you the energetic pushback and the opposite, right? And I even think parents see this with children all the time. The more controlling you are of your child, the more rebellious that they are bound to become, and the more out of control they may become, especially when they're older, right? Or there's going to come a breaking point where the control is no longer working. The grocery bag struggle, yeah. So I think we want to let go of this perfectionism, of these unrealistic expectations, right? Of this control, of this idea, this false belief that we have control over everything in our life at all times. No, that's false. You know, and I also think control. There's a deep fear and insecurity with faith that we compensate with control. So control is compensation for lack of faith or trust in the divine order of things, right? When you don't trust God, when you don't trust the universe, when you don't trust the divine, when you don't trust yourself, you don't trust your capabilities and your potential, when you don't trust that things are just going to work out, right? We compensate with control, with structure, with demand, with expectation, you know? And at the end of the day, it doesn't help at all. It actually doesn't do anything for us. It doesn't. We need to work on faith, optimism, trust, trusting the divine order of things, trusting that things are going to work out. All right, let's talk about let's go into the play by play. We're an hour in. I've just been kind of like rambling a bit, but it's okay. It's okay. Let's talk about the what's going on with the astrology of the week, and let's go kind of like through the moon sign, through the moon transits. You guys love my yapping? I'm a yapper. Yappa yappa. Oh, Jupiter's rising right now. Jupiter's on the ascendant right now. Oh, that's so sweet. Who's been feeling like emotional? I've been like crying for like I was like looking at my dog and I just like started tearing up and crying like last night. I was like, you were just so sweet and so precious. And I can't believe someone would just give you away. And I can't believe you were so unloved and so neglected when you were just such a kind little beautiful soul. Like, and I was getting all emotional and all crying, and my dog's all looking at me like, can you just give me a treat? Like, can you just put my plate of food down already? Like, what is all this yapping? What is all these tears and crying? What's all this? He's like, I don't get this. I don't really understand. Can you just go ahead and he's okay. You just go ahead and give me some food, please. Thank you. Oh, it's so funny. Looking at this and looking at that. Kids poking around in my windows. What's going on over here? What's going on? I got some kids peeping into the windows. What's going on? A little invading my privacy, okay? I was trying to get sympathy from my Capricorn child, never. Good luck with that. Well, the thing is, right? You got a Capricorn child. You expecting sympathy from a Capricorn, that's the first problem. That's your first, that's your first mess up, okay? But also you need to take accountability for your Capricorn child because baby, that Capricorn child was born out of you and they have Capricorn placements for that very reason. And so you got to take some kind of accountability around the fact that you created that Capricorn and they are that way in some part, maybe not in full, but in part because of you. Exactly. There's just a cat moon. Exactly. Exactly. There you go. Okay. I'm not going to say it's your fault in full, but it's definitely your fault in part. Okay. I love that for you. And listen, my mom's a cat moon, right? My mom's a Virgo cat moon. And I know that if I'm like feeling all sentimental and sad and stuff, and she's not the person, I mean, I'll go to her sometimes, but not always. Especially if it's about like like not a partner, but about like a relationship thing or something. My mom would be like, fuck them. Don't let them see you cry. You're stronger than that. Like you can't let them make you sad and get you down. Like they don't mean anything. Like she's so disappointed in me when I'm like sad about like someone letting me down or like something relationship oriented or dating oriented or whatever. She's so like, get your shit together. Like, don't let no one make you cry. Like, you're better than that. And I'm like, I am. That's a Capricorn thing. I ain't never gonna let no one make me cry or make me sad. Yeah, because they like Capricorn. They're very tough. They're like, baby, no, we ain't gonna cry because of that. Like, there's worse things in the world. There's more difficult things, right? Stop all that weak shit. Yeah, I have a Capricorn moon too, so I could be like that too. I'm a Pisces rising, but I'm a Capricorn moon, and so I'm tough. I'm built for tough. I'm a Scorpio sun, Mercury, Venus. I'm a Capricorn moon. I got Jupiter and Aries. I got a lot of Mars energy and Saturn energy in my chart. I'm built for tough. Like, it takes a lot to get to me. And usually it's the Pisces rising for sure that gets me all crying. It's my Pisces rising that makes me sentimental, but then I get over it real quick. Like, I'll be crying for like a minute. My cat moon kicks in. I'm like, okay, well, that was fun. Needed that. That was good. Moving on. Uh, moving on now. Enjoyed that. That was a nice little cry sesh. I feel a lot better. All right, moving on. Cat moon things, you know. Put the lid back on the emotion container. Cat moon things. All right. So if you're feeling paranoia and anxiety today, tomorrow, Wednesday, welcome to the moon in Virgo. Okay. The moon in Virgo today, tomorrow, and Wednesday is little it's ruled by Mercury retrograde. So there can be this energy of falling helplessly, things kind of falling apart, things coming to the surface, things being very unorganized or unsure, things being a little unclear, us feeling very confused, us feeling tired, exhausted, us wanting to sleep in a little bit more, canceled plans, delays with travel, things like this. With the moon in Virgo responding to Mercury retrograde in Pisces and being warped by the eclipse and us having our eclipse tomorrow, right? I just want you guys to be very mindful of these things. These are trying times. Someone said cat moon things. As someone with an Aquarius stellium, I need some Capricorn to keep me structured. As someone with an Aquarius stellium, you need to work on yourself, okay? I'm a comedian today, okay? I'm a comedian today. I knew a man that had an Aquarius stellium. Let me tell you one thing. If he's listening, if he comes back and listens to this years from now, he may. You never know. I'm very disappointed in you, sir. I'm very disappointed in you. You have so much potential. You could be doing so much better, okay? And you don't have to be an asshole. You don't. That is a personal choice that you make every day, you know? I really think when someone has too much Saturn energy, like too much Capricorn Aquarius, they could be an ass. They could be mean. And he could be mean. He was a very mean man. It is like for no reason. It's because he didn't like himself. He didn't love himself, you know? So if you're listening to this, sir, very beautiful man, by the way, very handsome, very beautiful man, very gorgeous, very beautiful man. If you're listening to this, get your shit together. Okay. Work on yourself. Love yourself. Okay. Stop being mean to people. And I honestly think, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you, Aquarius man. I think you hate yourself. And I think that anger and that rage and that hatred that you feel towards others and that meanness, I think it's a projection. And I think that's how you feel about yourself. And I think if you loved yourself more, you wouldn't treat people the way you do. But that's for you, Aquarius Stellium man. I hope you get your shit together one day. I hope you do. Anyways, let's bring it back to the astrology. Let's bring it back to the astrology. Are we back? Spirit agrees. Look at Spirit was like, we're gonna put you on pause, Louis. We're gonna put you on pause for a second. You need to recollect yourself and get back to the astrology at hand. Okay. I just, one of the things, that's really fascinating, and I want you guys to, I think you guys really need to understand this, especially for those of you that are, learning astrology and you're going deeper with it or whatever. You really need to understand that the planets manifest differently for people based on gender. And I just got to tell you this right now. Like, you know, I've noticed it, and it's such a strong thing in like that I've noticed in doing being someone that does readings every day is like just how differently the planets manifest in people's charts based on gender. Like it's really fascinating. And a man's Mars and Pisces and a woman's Mars and Pisces are going to manifest totally different. Totally, totally different. And when I say gender, I'm not like talking about like man, woman, or boy, girl. I'm talking about gender disposition. So I'm just talking about the raw essence of someone being either more masculine or more feminine energetically. I'm not talking about body parts. Okay. Someone can have female body parts, but have a masculine energy and a masculine disposition. So they relate more to the masculine planets in their chart. And you see this a lot, with women that are very masculine or men that are really feminine, you know, they have a lot of masculine energy in their chart or feminine energy in their chart. It has nothing to do with the body. It has nothing to do with your physical form. It has a lot to do with energetic disposition and energetic preference, or like kind of like gender. It's like a gender preference. It's like an energy preference. It's like the energy preference of the spirit of the soul, or the energy preference of the identity in this lifetime, you know? Or people are like more feminine, more masculine, or whatever. Everyone's a blend, obviously, right? But this is a very important thing because when you'll notice that, in doing astrology or in looking at charts, that these planets definitely manifest differently and show up energetically differently with people based on gender, and some placements are a lot easier for one gender where it's more difficult for the other, like Aries sun men, their lives are like that. Aries sun energy is so easy, very easy. But for an Aries sun woman, it's not as easy, you know? And this has a lot to do with the sun's exaltation in Aries, and the sun being, you know, the sun in Aries is a very masculine, very individualistic, very powerful placement. And that works well for for a society that caters to men, right? But in a patriarchal society, but a woman with a really strong sun, a sun in Leo, a sun in Aries, she's gonna have a hard time finding her footing, or she's gonna, not be well received in a society that praises and focuses and worships powerful male energy, where powerful female energy is not really respected. right? So that's why Aries, you'll see a lot of Aries women, Aries sun women, they have a hard time, you know? I think it's harder to be an Aries. I think it's harder to be an Aries woman than it is an Aries man because we live in a culture and a society and a timeline that really caters to the masculine, right? Where powerful, strong, masculine women are seen as like a threat, right? And they're in like, they're always being shut down and things like this. So, something to pay attention to, something to be really mindful of. Um, Especially if you are someone that practices astrology or, you want to learn more about astrology or understand astrology more, okay? How differently the planets manifest in people based off of gender preference or gender disposition. I think that's a beautiful way to say it. Gender disposition. Like gender disposition. Like it's not has nothing to do with like the body, more of like an energy thing. It's like an energy preference thing. Gender disposition. That is a nice way to put it, actually. I'm going to write that down. That is a really good term. Gender disposition. What is your gender disposition? I'm gonna start asking people that. We're gonna make that a thing. We're gonna make that a thing. Okay. So the moon's in Virgo. You always felt more masculine. Well, you got a lot of fire energy. If you're a woman with a lot of fire energy, you're gonna be very masculine. A lot of Leo, Sag, Aries. I have a few clients like that. I'm thinking about them now on top of my head. And these women, they're rough. They're rough around the edges. They're a little bossy, you know, little bossy, they can be a little mean, a little pissed off sometimes. You know what I mean? They can be a little aggressive. I have a client who is a Sag rising, Aries, Sun and Moon, Aries stellium. I think she has some Leo placements as well. She might have like Jupiter and Leo or something. She's like a Sag rising with like a whole Aries stellium in the fifth house, and she the boss. Let me tell you, she is the boss. All right, and she don't play no games. And I feel very, I feel very, I feel sorry for her ex-husband, her soon-to-be ex-husband. I feel bad for that man. Okay, you never want to take an Aries woman or a Libra woman to court. Don't do it. Do not take an Aries or a Libra woman to court. You're not going to have a good time. You're not going to have fun. Okay. These are women that they like fighting. They like justice, they like fighting, they like that. They enjoy that. So, and they're good at it. They like to win. These are very competitive signs. People don't think of Libra as a competitive sign, but actually Libra is a very competitive sign. My argument is that Libra is very competitive. I'd be willing to argue that at an astrological forum. Okay. And you don't want to take them to court because if you give them the opportunity to fight, they will. They will. And they're going to try to win. They're do everything they can to win. And Libra women, let me tell you, they look good too. They look good on paper. They look good in court. Libra Aries, they look good on court. They look good on paper. You know, they tend to get preference and things like this. Anyways, I digress. Let's get back to the astrology of the week. So the moon's in Virgo today, tomorrow, Wednesday. The moon is going to be opposing. Today, the moon's opposing Mars. We have our eclipse tomorrow with the moon opposing the sun. And the moon comes in to oppose Mercury and Venus. So I'm looking at Wednesday at the moon in Virgo. It goes into Libra like midday Pacific time, like around 12 p.m. Pacific time. But the moon is like opposing Venus, right? From Tuesday night going into Wednesday, like, morning, and the moon separating from opposition with Mercury. So we can, there could be important movement or things that kind of manifest or show up around Venus and Mercury things. So it's gonna be about like love, relationship stuff. It's gonna be about conversations, important conversations, messaging. I'm gonna tell you right now, once the moon goes into Libra and with Mercury retrograde and Venus about to go into Aries as well. Oh yeah, Venus goes into Aries this week. Oh. Oh, the moon's gonna go into Libra, Venus is gonna go into Aries. So the Venus goes into Aries on, oh, I should have talked about that or way earlier. Oh well. Here we are, hour and 20 minutes in, and we're covering Venus going into Aries this week. So Venus is gonna go into Aries on Friday as the moon goes into Libra, the sign of relationships, and Venus is gonna conjoin Saturn, the planet of reality checks and wake up calls, and the planet of no, the planet of rejection, the planet of commitment. So Venus Saturn conjunct on Friday. This can be about engagements, new contracts, people signing a deed, people signing a lease, people onboarding at a job, getting hired for a job, making some kind of long-term commitment. Venus, the planet of relationship, partnership, right? Saturn, the planet of contract, commitment, longevity coming together in the sign of Aries. So I think Venus going into Aries on Friday, March 6th, conjoining Saturn is going to look like a few things for people. I think it's going to look like people going deeper into commitment or people rupturing or releasing commitment. And also kind of like the absolute end of something or the absolute beginning of something, especially around relationships. And let me tell you, this kind of hurts a little bit. This Venus going into Aries this weekend, starting on Friday, with the moon in Libra opposite Chiron and Aries on Friday at the same time. And the moon goes into Scorpio. This kind of hurts. This kind of looks like we're having to confront relationship wounding this weekend. This looks like with the moon in Libra and Venus going into Aries, conjoining Saturn, we're mad about something in relationship or partnership this weekend. There's some kind of injustice, someone that has wronged us, someone that doesn't respect us, something that's unfair, something that we're not happy with, something that we don't like. There's something that we got to talk about with somebody and we're really feeling compelled to address this bullshit with Venus going into Aries, the planet of war or the sign of war and anger, right? So Venus is the planet of love, but Venus goes into her detriment in Aries. She's not strong in Aries because Venus wants love and peace, and Aries wants war and fights and anger and conflict. And Aries wants to be alone, or Venus wants to be together. So Venus going into Aries tells us that relationships are kind of taking the heat with Venus's ingress into Aries. She's leaving her exalted state in Pisces, where she's been very peaceful and very kind for the most part, right? We had that Uranus Mars square, but that was separate. The Uranus Mars square was separate from the Venus and Pisces. Also Mercury retrograde, all this Pisces energy, Mercury retrograde in Pisces, Venus and Pisces, right? The last of Venus and Pisces this week. We've been kind of like quiet and on like the DL. I don't know if that was our We've been quiet and on the DL about things. It's so funny because I'm a gay man, so when I use the word like DL, it just means like so much more to than for you guys, for the general populace. So when I said DL, I just like just started laughing. Anyways, okay. Pisces, was that the right word? Yeah. There's like been things that we've been holding back. That's what I meant to say. Things that we've been holding back, things that we've been quiet about. There's things that we've been silent about, things that we've been rummaging about, that we've been thinking about, that we've been wanting to talk about, wanting to address. There's also maybe decisions that we've been like rummaging about, things about the future that we've been thinking about, but we're like hesitating. We haven't like pulled the trigger on that thing yet, right? We haven't addressed it. We haven't taken action towards that thing or even like we haven't brought it up with the person. But this energy is gonna, it's like Venus is going into Aries with Saturn, and the moon's in Libra opposite Chiron in Aries. The moon's in Libra, the sign of relationships, on Friday, March 6th, as Venus goes into Aries, and it's opposing Chiron in Aries, the deep wound that we have around respect, around relationships, around power, around authority, around anger, around frustration, around action, or around conflict. Chiron in Aries has a lot to do with a deep wound around conflict. It's fascinating. People that have this, right? They tend to Chiron and Aries people. One of the things I've noticed is people that have this placement, they're in their like 40s now. These people are like in their 40s or yeah, they're like in their 40s or like early 50s, I think, right now, that have this Chiron and Libra because they're going through their Chiron return right now. Um, they have a wound that shows up around power and relationships, around anger or conflict, or even being like conflict avoidant, or even partnering with people that are always wanting to engage them in conflict, right? So they're either doing too much conflict or avoiding conflict in relationships. That's the Chiron and Aries thing. And so with the moon in Libra opposite Chiron and Aries on Friday, it's like, and Venus going into Aries, we're like, we have to really call the thing out. We have to kind of learn that balance between peace and war. Like, what is worth fighting for? What is worth actually compromising and forgiving, right? And does the value of the relationship outweigh the tension and the conflict, right, of the connection? And I think this is one of the things that a lot of people are going to be thinking about. But I just got to say, right? Venus conjunct Saturn has a lot to do with reality checks in relationships and endings in relationships as well. Okay. Especially with Venus and Saturn going in, with Venus conjoining Saturn, who just went into Aries. But this can also be about like the beginnings of a partnership or connection. I do think that this can be about commitment for people, you know? Um, We're going to see more war, though. I'm going to tell you guys right now. With Venus going into Saturn, with Venus conjoining Saturn, we may see a territory get occupied this upcoming weekend. So we may even see this with Iran. So Iran may become occupied in some type of way. Then we may see some foreign countries deal with some kind of government occupation or some government overthrow or government takeover with Venus Saturn. Saturn is a planet of control and government and authority. And Venus has a lot to do with land, resources, things of value, right? And so when Venus and Saturn are conjoining, right, right after an eclipse with the current condition and circumstances of things, it's like I really do think that this is going to manifest as control and authority, and where powers that be globally are securing resources, and they're using political structures, or they're using occupation in order to secure resources, whether it be water, whether it be oil, whether it be precious metals, whether it be you know the forest and wood and things like this, like natural resources. We're going to see some of this weekend. There's going to be some stories that come out about this with Venus and Saturn coming into conjunction. Okay. But we get a little bit of peace, though. No, we don't, actually. I thought we did, but we don't. With the moon going into Libra, you know, on Wednesday, I was thinking, oh, yeah, the moon leaves Virgo, goes into Libra midday Wednesday. But no. Mm-mm. No, no, no. No, no, no. We don't. Because the moon immediately opposes Saturn and Neptune and Aries. So the moon in Libra opposite Saturn and Neptune and Aries, midday Wednesday. I'm expecting Wednesday to there's going to be some announcements around. We may see because the moon's in Libra, which is a sign of peace. So we may see some talks around negotiations and contracts politically, globally, with like countries. There may be some kind of like peace negotiation, some kind of like contract. The UN may drop another email or may drop another, statement. Not really doing much, but saying a lot, but not really doing much. Okay. With the moon and Libra going opposing Saturn and Aries. Okay. This can also be about contracts and justice and like accountability and like difficult relationship experiences as well for us individually. With the moon and Libra opposing Saturn and Neptune and Aries. Wednesday going to Thursday. We're gonna feel this energy, because a few days later, Venus goes into Aries as the moon is wrapping up in Libra and opposing Chiron, who's at 24. Venus goes into Aries and conjoins Saturn. So we're seeing some Saturn activation, a few times this week. First on Wednesday with the moon in Libra up opposite Saturn, and then again on Friday once Venus moves into Aries and conjoins Saturn. So and the activation of Saturn brings hard, difficult, painful things. And I just want you guys to be mindful of this because there's no getting away from this energy. And We just got to kind of like lean in and we got to, hold on to the sides of the boat as the sea is very rough and rocky. And we just got to do our best, make sure you're taking um, what is it? Your nausea medication, so you don't get seasick. And if you guys have that, you guys have that like seasickness thing, or what is it called? It's called yeah, I guess seasickness, but like motion sickness. You guys, anybody have that motion sickness? That is so weird to me. Motion sickness. That is a very strange thing to me. Don't get it. Anyways, so yeah, Moon in Libra, ruled by Venus, who's at the last degrees of Pisces. Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday, she's at 29. And then Venus goes into Aries as the moon's wrapping up in Libra. You get car sick if you're not driving. That's interesting. So it's like the middle of this week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is about peace and war. It's about love and war. It's about, are we gonna compromise and are we gonna like make it work, or are we like, fuck that bitch, let's go fight, let's go argue about things. And then the moon goes into Scorpio, which typically I would like because the moon in Scorpio does trine all the Pisces stuff, but I don't really like this moon in Scorpio transit. I'm not really liking it because we have Mars, who's next to the North Node, and Mars just went into Pisces. I mean, Pisces is a sign that Mars is okay in, right? It's kind of like a neutral sign for Mars. It's not good or bad, it's just kind of neutral. But Mars coming close to the North Node. I'm looking at Saturday, March 7th. I'm looking at Mars at 4 Pisces, the North Node at 8, and the moon in Scorpio at 8. Around midday, the moon is trine Mars. And the moon's in Scorpio, ruled by Mars. And it's just, we're back in this Mars energy. We're back in this emotional Mars energy. We're feeling very sensitive and we're feeling maybe a little afraid. Maybe I really do think that this moon in Scorpio over this weekend is going to be digging some shit up. I think it's going to be digging up a lot of emotions. I think, heavy emotions that people have been holding on to are surfacing and are triggering people this weekend. People are feeling the need to act out of emotion. We have the moon in Scorpio trining Mars in Pisces, who's next to the North Node. So we're feeling called to be aggressive. We're feeling called to act. The North Node and Mars coming into conjunction, right? We're feeling called to like take action and make a bold move and like do something. We want to do something about how we're feeling this weekend. And I want you guys to be mindful of this because sometimes we act very irrationally when we are impulsively letting emotion drive our actions. We do and say the craziest things when we are in a state of hyper emotional, when we are like in a hyper emotional moment. You know, we do the craziest things. I do believe they call them crimes of passion. Okay, crimes of passion. And I'm a little worried. I don't like the moon in Scorpio with North Node Mars in Pisces and Venus in Aries with Saturn. This is giving crimes of passion. This is giving abuse against women. Saturn conjunct Venus in Aries. Moon in Scorpio trine Mars, Saturday, Sunday. This is giving abuse against women, you know? I don't like this. I don't like this energy. I don't like this energy. This energy is very toxic. It's very Martian. It's not peaceful. This is very aggressive. It's like angry men, angry men. Angry men, frustrated men, men that are have, issues, anger issues. Men with anger issues are being triggered right now. This energy is triggering men with anger issues. I'm looking up or something right now. Yeah, we had a yeah. Like, people are just like, yeah, people are mad about things spiritually and religiously as well. You know, I looked up mass shootings to see what's going on, and dude, where there's been like Austin, Cincinnati, we just had a mass shooting. Nine people injured in Cincinnati mass shooting a day ago. Austin mass shooting. Like, ugh. You guys just be mindful of this energy, okay? Like, because this energy is like very toxic. It's very triggering and it's very toxic. I gotta be honest. I don't want to lie to you guys, okay? This energy is a little dangerous, right? I think this eclipse energy, we want to be as clear and sober-minded as possible. We want to avoid people, places, or things that are very dangerous, you know? I was doing a reading last week and I got a download when I was doing this, reading this guy's chart, that he's been like a warrior in many lives or been like an army guy. And a download I got, I was like, I asked him, I was like, do you have a collection of guns or do you own guns? And he was like, yeah, I have a whole collection. And then download I got was that he's going to be having a child or he has a child coming and he has to get rid of all the guns in his house. He has to move away from this. Like, it's like a past life mentality or a past life energy to this identity of being like a warrior, like being like an army person, being a warrior, being like a violent criminal type of energy. And he has to transition away from this identity and like letting go of the guns is going to allow him to be a better father. And it's part of this transitionary process of becoming a dad. And it was a download that I got very clearly. Spirit was like, you need to tell him this, you know? And because they showed me, they were like, oh yeah, this guy's like guns and he's like, you know, a warrior and he has this attachment to this identity. But it's very dangerous, you know, and statistics even show that the likelihood of you getting shot by a gun goes up like 60 or 70% or something just by having a gun in the house. Just by having it there, no matter where it's at, just having it available in the house ups your chances by a lot of getting shot by a gun, right? And I think it's important that we don't have Mars energy. We have as little of Mars energy in the home as possible. Guns are a Mars thing. Anything that's violent, anything that's destructive, anything that can cause harm or bodily injury to people is ruled by Mars, right? And Mars has is very mischievous. He's a very mischievous energy. And this is why, you know, we read so many stories of like, oh yeah, the kid got into the cupboard, or the kid got into the closet and found the gun. Like, how is this happening? What is this? What, right? Like, of all the places, how did it's because Mars is a mischievous energy. And Mars, right, is sometimes enticing. And we human beings have this curiosity and this fascination, and also some we have this like shadow around dangerous things. We like to play with dangerous things, you know, or something that's very, you know, we have a mischievous side to us, right? But I think if we don't make ourselves available to this energy, if we don't have this energy around us and we kind of do our best to stay away from it, we're not going to really have these Martian experiences. You know what I mean? But sometimes Mars will come to find you. You know, sometimes you're having a Mars transit and you're going to get burned, you're going to get cut, you're going to get injured, you're going to get wounded. You know, you're going to get in a fight, you're going to get in an argument, you're going to get in an accident, something's going to catch on fire or explode, something breaks, you know, you fall, you break a bone, you know, something like that. Sometimes Mars comes to get you. You have a Mars transit, you're going through a Mars thing, you know? And it is what it is. But what I will say though is the reason why I was bringing up that story is because with all this Mars energy, we need to be careful and be mindful of inviting Mars into our life, right? Of being an agent of Mars. being a criminal, being violent, being an abuser, being someone who's very argumentative or very aggressive. And some people are just like this. Some people are Martian people. Some people just are have a lot of Mars energy, like myself. I have a lot of Aries and Scorpio energy. But just because you're a Mars person or you have a lot of Mars energy doesn't mean you go out in the world causing fights and arguments and setting fires everywhere you go, you know? We need to be very mindful of where we put that Mars energy, right? Mars is an energy that needs containment and restriction. Um, if you think about Mars, right, being the planet of fire and being connected to fire, fire is not an element that we just let roam freely, right? Do you see fire out in nature just running around doing its thing? No, we don't. We contain fire. The moment something's on fire, we want to put it out as quick as possible, right? Because fire is dangerous. Fire is destructive, right? Fire is an element that it purifies, but it also destroys, you know? And we need to be mindful of this with all this Martian energy in the air. Like, are we being agents of Mars? Are we causing unnecessary fire, destruction, chaos, pain, woundedness, arguing, fighting for no reason? You know what I mean? And when when people that have a lot of Mars energy are not in the right relationship with their Mars and with their Mars, oh my God, they are very, very destructive to themselves and to others, and it could be a very dangerous, scary thing. Mars is he could be a very scary planet. He's violent, he's mean. Mars is a murderer. Mars is a murderer. We don't like to talk about we like to talk about, nice, fluffy, lighthearted astrology, but when we start talking about Saturn and Mars, people are like, "Ooh, oh, I don't want to talk about that. That makes me uncomfortable." But no, Saturn and Mars, they're the abusers. They're abusers. These are the planets that embody abuse and neglect. And you see this with people that are abusive parents or people that are abusive spouses, you are going to see, or even that are victims of abuse, you're going to see a lot of Saturn and Mars in their chart. You're going to see Saturn square Venus, Saturn on Venus, Mars opposite Venus, Mars on the moon, Saturn opposite the moon, Saturn square the moon, a moon in Capricorn, a moon in Aquarius, You're going to see this because it's a karmic thing with Saturn and Mars and how the neglect and the abuse of Saturn and Mars manifest in our life. It's crazy. It's actually really, it's psychologically, it's difficult, but it's also very fascinating because it's like being able to look at a chart and you see an aspect and you'll be like, oh my God, like what have you gone through with love? And they're like, oh my God, I've been locked in a closet by a spouse. I feared for my life. I had a stalker, all this. And then you'll be like, oh wow, you have a Saturn Venus aspect. Oh wow, you have a Mars Venus aspect. And it really speaks to their experience. you know it really speaks to their experience, where they have a certain karma with Saturn and Mars afflicting the good planets, the planets of love and partnership or home and family, right? Moon and Venus. And I think it's like it's difficult. I went ahead and talked about this. It's so crazy on Threads like last year. I went ahead and talked about domestic abuse and domestic violence. Very, I don't know if you could talk about those subjects lightly, but I was talking about how Saturn and Mars manifest as abuse and neglect in synastry in relationships. And there was like 10 astrologers that were so triggered and were like, oh, you can't be talking about that. And you need statistical evidence. And, where did you read that from? Baby, please. I do astrology daily and I look at synastry charts daily. And I do readings for people from all walks of life, young, old, people that are successful, people that are struggling, people that have the most beautiful, amazing relationship experiences, and people that have dealt with the worst domestic abuse and violence in relationships. And I've looked at the synastry and I've seen why that manifests in their life based on their charts and also based on the synastry with others. Okay. So I was just like so disappointed because what I've realized is We got a lot of astrologers that are too wrapped up in the textbooks and they're not actually doing readings, or they're not actually working with people and learning organically about people's charts and their lived experience because they're not actually doing astrology for others. So they things like this, domestic abuse, domestic violence in relationships, they don't know anything about that and how it shows up in astrology because they don't do readings for people like that. They don't have that kind of depth and they don't have the capacity to do readings and the understanding to do readings for people like that, right? And that's one of the things about me is like I'm a very open, vulnerable person. And I have this beautiful gift for making people feel safe, where people are really open and vulnerable with me. And we talk about some very deep, dark, heavy things. And a lot of this has a lot to do with relationship experiences. And a lot of people who have gone through very toxic relationships, they carry a lot of shame around those experiences. So they have a lot of, anxiety and fear, or they even like have a lot of shame around opening up and talking about these experiences with people. And one of the beautiful things that I do, and one of the goals of my work is to always make people feel safe so that they can be as honest and vulnerable and open with me as possible so that we can really get to the truth of their chart and their astrology and really get to the depth of it, right? And things like this. But I'll be able to see it though. Like I'll be like, oh yeah, like this is what you've experienced in relationships, or have you? I'll ask them, have you experienced this in relationships? I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I went through the worst of it, and then I'll explain it and how it shows up in their chart, right? But it's like I really do think that it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that there's a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of, this is just a very general statement, but in my experience, from what I've experienced thus far when it comes to the astrological community, there's this reluctance to look at the truth and the depth of like people's full experience. And and you'll see this with readers too. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, I don't read on love. I don't read on this. I don't read on that." Like they pick and choose what kind of information they're going to give you, and they're like, "I'm not going to talk to you about this. I'm not going to look at this. We can't do Who are we to do that?" Right? And that's not how life works. Mm-mm. Life doesn't work in these segmented ways where we can just be like, oh, yep, I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to talk about that with you. I'm not going to address that. We're not going to go ahead and read on that. No, we got to be open to everything because everything is so intimately intertwined, you know? And yeah, and I just think a lot of people are afraid. They're just not vulnerable. They're just not, they're afraid of being really open and vulnerable with others because they haven't met themselves there, right? And so there's like a lot of readings. People go get readings and they feel this lack of depth or this lack of understanding or compassion, or they feel this lack of intimacy, with a reader, or their experience tends to feel a little shallow. And that's because the reader isn't creating the space for depth and intimacy and closeness, right? The reader isn't creating the space for truth, right? And compassion and understanding as well, So I think it's super important. I think it's super important that we, allow ourselves to be deep and vulnerable, and that we allow the fullness of our lived experience to reveal itself through the stars by not picking and choosing, what we want and what we don't want. Like, and I think, and this is another thing I was talking about this yesterday, is like before you ask a question to spirit or the divine, you got to be prepared for the answer. A lot of times, I think the majority of the time when you ask a question, you already know the answer and you're looking for confirmation, but you're going to ask a question and you want a certain answer, right? We usually ask questions. We ask questions where we have a desire attached to the question. We have a desired outcome. We want something. We wish something that works out this way, right? And we got to be prepared for the truth of the answer when it's a no, or when it's a bad outcome, or when it's like, nope, this isn't going to be it, right? We got to be ready and willing and prepared to receive that. And this is even like with bad information and bad news. If you're someone that just wants to live in the delusion of positivity, well, life is all good and everything's great and nothing bad's ever going to happen. Divination and astrology and tarot and spirituality is not for you. It's not. Because walking the spiritual path, learning the tarot and the astrology, getting into divination, getting into like, the deeper, darker parts of life, the occult stuff, you're going to have to confront all the darkness and the shadows. And that information is going to come and find you. You're going to see it. You're going to see things. You're going to get a download sometimes where it's like, oh my goodness, like, wow, right? You got to be prepared for that. You got to be spiritually grounded and you got to be strong enough within yourself to be able to look at not only the bad, but the good. I'm sorry, not only the good, but the bad, right? And I think it's very important. It's funny that we're talking about that. We're talking about this right now because the moon is going to be in Scorpio, and I have the moon going into Scorpio, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday of this week. And it's a very scorpionic thing to be like, wait a minute, we have to also look at the underbelly. You got to look at the shadows. You got to look underneath the floorboards. You got to look at the stuff that, those that we're afraid of, the stuff underneath the bed, the stuff in the closet, we got to air this stuff out too and shed light there because that's where a lot of healing happens, and stuff like this. So I think it's really important that, we have a certain amount of spiritual integrity around the fullness of our lived experience and understanding that sometimes, you know, the stars, astrology, tarot is going to show us things that are very challenging or very difficult, very hard, right? And we got to be prepared to receive that. Or sometimes we're going to get a no around something that we really want a yes from, and we got to accept the no. Spirit is telling you no. And you're like, oh, I don't want this, can I have one more day? But I just really want this thing. And Spirit's like, no, no, it's a no. And you could beg and plead all you want, but keep pulling cards on it. And Spirit's gonna keep telling you, give you the same answer. No, you know? And we gotta be okay with that. We gotta be like, okay, yes, I get it. I receive, I accept, and I surrender, right? We can be so stubborn, very, very stubborn with the things that we want, you know? And sometimes the things that we want is not what the divine and spirit wants for us, and we can cry and plead and beg all we want, but it's still like it's like, it's like your spiritual parent. No, you can't have that toy. That toy is not for you. Okay? It's too expensive. You're like, oh, but can I have that? They're like, oh, nope, I'm sorry, it's not, it's too expensive. We can't afford that right now. Maybe later. You might be able to get that later, okay? Maybe for Christmas. And then you get surprised with it, right? That's the other thing. That's another thing that spirit does sometimes. Sometimes once you abandon a desire and once you don't want it anymore, or once it's like denied to you, the spirit will give it to you anyways. When you no longer want it, or you'll get it and you'll be like, wait a minute, this isn't all I thought it was gonna be, you know? Oh, I thought this was gonna be something so like great and amazing, and then you get it, you're like, oh my God, this is all that was like. I did all that desiring and all that craving and all that wanting for this? What a waste. What a waste of energy. Man, you get what you asked for, but it's never what you wanted, right? It's never shows up exactly as you thought it was going to be. It's so funny the way Spirit teaches us these lessons. It's always hilarious. It's really, really funny. They'll be like, but didn't you get what you want? I know, but I didn't want it like this. I wanted it in pink. You asked for a Game Boy and you get it in purple, and you're like, but I wanted it pink. You got the fucking Game Boy. Just be happy. That's how spirit is. I swear, spirit be like, just be happy with what you got sometimes. Like, where's the gratitude at? Still finding something to complain about. Still finding something to be ungrateful about. So funny. But yeah, so we wrap up this week with the moon in Scorpio transit. And it's ruled by Mars and Pisces, who just went into Pisces as of today, yesterday going into today, you know. So Moon in Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio this week. Lunar eclipse in Virgo tomorrow. Venus going into Aries, conjoining Saturn on Friday. Moon in Libra opposing Saturn on Wednesday. Moon in Libra opposing Chiron in Aries on Friday. Moon goes into Scorpio on Saturday, as Mars and the North Node are coming into conjunction. This is about obsessive compulsive energy. This is addictive energy. This is angry energy. This is combative energy. This is the energy of war and conflict. This is the energy of accountability and justice. This is the energy of escapism and avoidance. This is the energy of self-destruction and self-sabotage. This is the energy of confusion, but also the energy of hope and optimism and joy and redemption. And I think that's one of the things with like Pisces, when we have a stellium in Pisces, right? The sun in Pisces, it's like, are you going to be a saint or are you going to be a sinner? You know? Are you going to like walk the divine path of Jesus, or are you going to be a homeless bum, a criminal, a drug addict, a villain, a prisoner? Which way do you want to go? This Mercury retrograde is like, okay, do you want to follow the holy path, or do you want to follow your path of recklessness and self-destruction? Okay, like it's like, what is the path that you want to lay out for yourself? And this Mercury retrograde is trying to get us to go follow the higher path, but also to understand that a lot of our trauma and self-destructive habits and behaviors, and a lot of the things that, are insecurities, and stuff like this. A lot of our bad habits, bad behaviors, depression, anxiety, paranoia, all this stuff is rooted in childhood. It's rooted in shame. It's rooted in guilt. It's rooted in things that have happened to us. It's rooted in pain. It's rooted in moments of rejection from childhood. It's rooted in our mother and our father wounds. It's rooted in how we weren't celebrated and supported growing up, how we weren't encouraged, right? We experienced neglect externally first, and now we have internalized it, and so we are neglecting ourselves. So, with that being said, we need to take a look this week at our self destructive, self sabotaging habits and behaviors. We take a look at how they're rooted in moments of neglect and trauma from our past, from a past lover, from a mother, from a father, from a friend, from a family member, from a sibling, from an aunt, from an uncle, from a cousin, right? We internalize, we internalize rejection. We internalize parental wounds, right? We internalize trauma, and it becomes shame. And it becomes health issues and all this, right? So this, how have we internalized things that don't really belong to us? And how do we need to free ourselves from a victim mentality or from woundedness that we have taken into our person, and that's becoming self-inflictive, right? Hurt people hurt others. But once people hurt us, we can internalize that pain, and then it becomes self-harm. We hurt ourselves. A lot of people that hurt themselves, they were hurt by someone first. You got to understand this. When people are engaging in self-harm, it's because they have pain that they've experienced from someone else. Someone hurt them, and now they're hurting themselves. And because they don't know anywhere, they don't know where to put that pain. So that all they keep doing is reciprocating it, recycling it within themselves. They hurt themselves more and more and more. They're looking for an outlet for that pain. It's ironic because in looking for an outlet for the pain, we actually cause ourselves more pain. The irony, right? The complexity of being a human being. In looking to relieve the pain, you hurt yourself more. Like, what is going on here? Like, right? Like, what are we doing? Well, Louis, when you put it that way, right? Like, and so I think it's really important, like this week, as we're moving through this, lunar eclipse in Virgo, and we have this Mercury retrograde in Pisces, we need to take a look at the ways that we've internalized woundedness, and it's become self-harm or self-rejection, right? In some type of way. And this doesn't have to be literally about like habits and behaviors. This can also be about emotions and ways that you think about yourself, the things that you tell yourself every day. Like we also internalize a lot of programming, a lot of the things that were said, a lot of our beliefs, a lot of our opinions or judgments that other people have placed upon us, right? We internalize those things and we convince ourselves of other people's judgments and other people's, bullshit that they push upon us. Right. And so it's like you grow up, if you grow up with a parent that's always telling you, oh, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're not capable, you're a failure, you're never going to become anything. At some point, when you are told that every day, it's possible that you're going to internalize that. And that becomes your reality and that becomes your truth. So all of a sudden you grow up and you're like 30, 40 years old. Why do I feel so dumb? And why do I feel so stupid? And why do I feel like a failure? And why do I feel like I can't, you know, accomplish anything? Or why do I just give up on myself so easily? And it's well because you've internalized this messaging and you've identified with it, and now it's become your truth, even though it's not who you really are. It's just a trauma-based identity, right? And it's been adopted by the mind. It's like that's kind of like how brainwashing and shit works, right? So we got to undo a lot of this program. We got to undo a lot of emotional programming, a lot of mental programming, a lot of behavioral programming that we adopt in childhood and our youth in response to, a difficult lived experience growing up, right? In response to a childhood. Like these are a lot of defense mechanisms as well that the ego and the identity and the personality, develops in youth as forms of self-protection. But at some point, we don't need those anymore. They become blockages. They become walls to our growth, right? They inhibit our growth. And so we got to be mindful of like how we allow this, this childhood traumas and all these things that we've gone through, of how we've allowed them, how we internalize them, how we allow them to become a part of us when they're not part of who we are, right? So my invitation for you this week is to really take a look at, some of these shadows, some of these traumas, some of these thwarted, delusional ways of perceiving yourself, perceiving others, and peering through the fog, getting rid of all that bullshit, because that's not who you are, my love. You are a beautiful gem. You are capable. You're talented. You're gifted. You have so much potential, right? And you got to really believe it though, because if you don't feel it, you don't believe it, it doesn't matter, right? Like it don't matter. You got to feel it and you got to believe it. That's the other thing. It's like you could tell someone every day, like, oh, you're great and you're amazing and you're beautiful and you're X, Y, and Z. But if they don't feel it or believe it, it don't even matter, right? A big part of, you know, accepting that, a big part of like shifting that your personality, shifting your mentality, shifting your life is the belief in the possibility, right? And like actually feeling it. You got to feel it. You got to feel it to believe it, my loves. You got to feel it to receive it, right? So, okay, I think that's where we're gonna wrap up. I'm gonna go ahead and post this on YouTube, and I'm also gonna post the lunar eclipse in Virgo. Live that I did yesterday. I'm gonna post that on YouTube. I'm gonna work on that in the next few hours. I am booked for readings for the next few weeks. It's Mercury retrograde, so I've been having a lot of people rescheduling and postponing. So if you are someone and you're trying to like get like, a sooner or earlier appointment with me than what's available on my calendar, go take a look at my calendar every morning because there's been a lot of shifts. Like there's people who are like, I think it's just the Mercury retrograde. A lot of people like delaying their appointments or rescheduling their appointments and pushing them out. And so it's creating a lot of like immediate availability. Also, when you're on my appointment page, you can also join my wait list. So through my appointment feature or through the appointment website, if you scroll to the very bottom when you're booking an appointment, you can actually jump on my wait list so that anytime there's like a cancellation or anytime someone like reschedules and a slot opens up, you'll get notified so you can book that appointment. Okay. So it's really cool. Everyone that's been sending me their friends and their family, I just wanted to tell you all thank you so much. I've been getting a lot of referrals. Um, the last few months, and I'm just so grateful for you all for sending, your family members and friends and the people that you love, sending them my way. Um, I'm grateful for that. I appreciate that. Just lets me know that you guys really value my work and you value it enough to the point where you want to share it with other people, and that's very important for me. Most of my business actually comes from, I don't want to say most. Hmm, I'll say like maybe 50% of my business comes from referrals. And the other 50 probably comes from like, you know, online, my online presence. Um, but yeah, I'm so thankful for you guys. I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you for being so supportive of me and sharing me with the world. I really appreciate that. But I'm gonna let you all go. You guys have a beautiful, blessed day. Um, oh, get some rest. Don't stress. Okay, no stress express. No overwhelming yourself or overburdening yourself. You know, go with the flow, stay flexible, stay bendable, give yourself permission to heal. Don't be too demanding on others right now. You got to allow things to like just change. We got to allow things to just flow. We're in eclipse season. Eclipses is when we just surrender to the tides of change and we let the divine bring things into our life and take things out of our life. It's just part of this karmic pattern, right? Like we need to let the luminaries, we need to let the divine, we need to let spirit, we need to let God, we need to let our ancestors, we need to let the universe, we need to let the greater powers that be, we need to let them do their thing. We need to let them move things and let them kind of give them a sense of presence and agency and respect them. And that's one of the things as well. Like when it comes to the planets, I have so much respect for the planets, for the sun and the moon, for the stars, because they're the gods. And I've said this before. Have you guys ever, who's heard me say this? The planets are the gods. And we've been worshiping the gods and the planets since the beginning of time. Go all the way back into creation. Okay? Go look at all the cultures of old. They've all been worshiping the planets since the beginning of time. And they've loved the planets, right? As human beings, we love the planets so much. And we have such an admiration and respect for them that we've named them. That we've given them stories, that we've given them identities, we've given them personalities. They're they have archetypal energies, right, that they embody that are kind of similar across multiple cultures, spanning over a long period of time, right? It's funny because even though, Rome and Greece and India all had different names for Mars, the meaning behind planet Mars is the same historically across all cultures. Mars being the planet of war, anger, rage, fighting. His archetypal essence across all cultures, going all the way back in time, has been the same. The same, regardless of language, regardless of culture, regardless of religious belief, right? The planetary meanings going all the way back have been the same. So, what does this tell us? There's something very sacred and powerful about the planets, and there's something very divine. And they are kind of like, doing God's work, doing the work of the divine. And you can look up to them. Go look at how big and beautiful they are. If you ever have an opportunity, if you know someone that has a telescope and stuff like this, go look at the planets through a telescope and or even just go out in the sky, go out at night, and look at and do some stargazing, look at the planets. One of my favorite one of my favorite planets is Jupiter. I love Jupiter, and it's so cool because Jupiter's retrograde right now. And I go on night walks, I take my dog on night walks, and the planet that always finds me in the sky at night is Jupiter. I just know where he's at. I can just look up and right away I see him. And it's just like I know where he's at. It's like an intuitive relationship that I have with Jupiter. But I think it's because I've cultivated a relationship with the planets as well, right? And I think that's another beautiful thing, like as, astrologers really getting to know the planets on a spiritual perspective or on a spiritual level, on an intuitive perspective is something that's very powerful. Not seeing the planets as like these like lifeless, unintentional floating bodies of, matter. They're deeper than that. The planets feel. The planets have intention. You know, the planets have awareness and consciousness. I really believe this. I really do believe that the planets are aware. I think everything is aware. Everything has an element of life and everything has an element of awareness, right? At varying degrees. But I think the planets are very, very aware. And I think they have intention. And I think they have goals and they have messages for all of us. And that's what astrology is. Astrology is literally the language of the planets. It's the science and the magic of the planets. And it's the vessel of knowledge, right? Astrology is the vessel of knowledge that gives the planets meaning. It translates what the planets are trying to tell us. That's what astrology does for us, right? It allows us to hear what the planets are saying, right? That's what astrology does. That's the gift and the beauty of astrology. And we got to embrace it. We got to lean in and we got to have a lot of respect for these celestial beings, these beautiful celestial beings. That's what the planets are. So much respect for them. They're so powerful and they're so great and they are enormous and they are, like beautiful, powerful. And we are made up of them. We embody them, right? Some of us are Mars, some of us are Jupiter, some of us are Venus, some of us are Mercury, some of us are very Sun, Leo energy. Some of us are very, we're Scorpio Mars, we're Mars, and we're borrowing energy from the planets. We are literally embodying partially their archetypes. We're borrowing a little bit of their identity, of their archetypal energy, right? And we're manifesting it here on Earth, right? This is why we're like, oh, I'm a Gemini. Oh no, you're Mercury's child. Oh yeah, I'm a Cancer. You're from the moon. You're a moon person. You're from the moon, right? You're the moon's child, right? Oh, I'm a Leo. Yeah, you're a child of the sun, right? And that's how it works. We're all amalgamations and creations of the planets. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, you can also look out right now and see the planets in alignment. I'm proud to be a child of Saturn. Yeah, I'm a Saturn child too. Yeah, Saturn's my dad. Saturn's my daddy. I have a lot of respect for it. I'm a very Jupiter Saturn person, so I have a lot of I have a Capricorn moon and a Pisces rising, and I have like a 10th house Saturn in Sag, and I have Jupiter trine Saturn too in my chart. So I'm very much like a Jupiter Saturn person, and those two planets by far I'm very, very connected to. I'm extremely connected to Jupiter and Saturn. I have a lot of respect for both of those planets. Those are my primary two. I would say those are like my favorite planets, Jupiter and Saturn for sure. Yeah. Buying my candle and manifesting. I love that for you. Okay, my loves. Well, I'm gonna let you guys go. I can sit here and ramble all day and talk about my, spiritual philosophy and how astrology ties into it. Um, my astrological practice is spiritually informed, as it should be. I think every astrologer is I can't speak for everybody, but I do think that every astrologer should have a spiritually informed practice. I deeply feel this, you know? And if they don't have like a spiritual foundation or a spiritual understanding, and they're not fitting that into, you know, that isn't like that framework isn't being applied to the astrology, just don't know how we can, how they could find like success. Love you. I ate. I agree. You agree. Yeah. I don't know how, I think we need more spiritually focused or spiritually grounded divinators, no matter what it be. Astrology, tarot, oracle, psychic, intuitive people, whatever. I think we need people that are more spiritually grounded and spiritually focused, or they have a little bit more of a spiritually incorporated, they've spiritually incorporated their work in some type of way. All right, enough about that. That's a conversation for another day. One of the things that I have like a lot of readings this week, but one of the things I want to do this week is I want to go over a few celebrity charts. Yeah, competent ones. Yeah, also culturally competent. Yeah, a lot of them aren't. Yeah, a lot of them have bad politics, and oh Lord Jesus, I've had to unfollow a lot of white male astrologers. I'll just say it like that because they're just terrible politics, dude. And when people got bad politics, they got bad spirit. They have no spiritual practice. Because if you're someone that's on the spiritual path, there's certain things around compassion, understanding, tolerance, forgiveness, equality, justice that are self-evident. That are self-evident. in my opinion. When you are someone that has a good heart and you're like, you have a good spirit and you like generally want what's good for others, there's certain political ideologies or political stances that are self-evident, that are not even worth arguing. Like you should know better, you know? So for me, it's like when someone's into astrology or the occult, but then they have horrible politics, I'm like, something's off. You're not really spiritually aligned. And I can't really trust your work anymore because now I'm not sure if you're in this just for the money or just for success or just like I really don't trust you anymore. I don't really feel safe with you anymore when you have bad politics, you know? I don't really know if you're doing your this work with right intentions anymore because if you have bad politics, then something else is a little off and rotten in your spirit, and I can't trust it. So there's a lot of people that I just don't follow. I used to have a lot of respect for certain astrologers, but or even like spiritualists, and there's so many of them that I've had to unfollow or that I just like don't even mess with anymore because I'm like, ew, there's some ick there that you got to work on. There's some ick there that you got to work on, you know? You know what I mean? Your heart's not in a good place. You gotta work on that spirit of yours. Okay, that spirit is a little, I don't know, some shadow there that needs to be, you got to take a look at that. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Just because, and this is another thing, like just because someone is gifted and talented doesn't mean that their heart and their spirit's in the right place. And this is one of the things I've had to tell people, clients before that have had really bad experiences with other readers or psychics and stuff. Just because someone is gifted or talented doesn't mean that they won't take advantage of you or doesn't mean that their heart and their spirit is in the right place. So someone can be a psychic, but also have like envy and jealousy in their heart, right? And so they can use their gifts for bad. And so that's something to be aware of. Some people just have natural inherent gifts, but they're mixed with like a bad spirit. They're mixed with things in the heart and the spirit that are not good or well. And so you got to be mindful, of just because someone's very gifted or talented doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good person, right? And we see this with artists. You see this with artists, you see this with musicians, you see this, you know, in everyday life. So why would that be any different when it comes to spiritual workers or people that are psychic or intuitive? Just because they got the gift doesn't mean that they're using it for good or doesn't mean that their spirit and their heart's in the right place. You know what I mean? There's some very intelligent people that are also very bad, right? And I think this is also the same thing with like looks. Oh my God. And I promise you we're gonna wrap up here. Like we assume that beautiful people or good-looking people are good. There's a lot of assumption that if someone is beautiful or good looking, we generally give them more grace and we tend to assume that, oh, this person is good. But one of the interesting things is that a lot of the serial killers and a lot of the murderers and a lot of the abusers that have gotten away with it or that were doing it for so long where no one was holding them accountable was because they were a good looking person. And people were just like, that handsome person would never, right? That good looking person would never. But no, 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 no. You know, beauty can hide a lot of darkness. Yeah, Lucifer was handsome. Exactly. Lucifer was the most beautiful angel around, right? But beauty has a way of corrupting the spirit. I stand 10 toes on that statement, okay? Beauty can have a way of corrupting the spirit. I've seen it. It creates narcissism and it can also create what is that word? It's like self-love, excessive self-love, something like that. You know? That's why you don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah, you know. Beauty can really corrupt the spirit. It really can. I've seen it. I've seen some very fucked up, beautiful people. Okay. Vanity is the word that I was looking for. Thank you for that. That's the word I was looking for, vanity. Yeah, it makes people very, very vain. Beauty can give people an inflated sense of self and superiority, a false sense of inflated superiority, can make people very vain. Vanity, yes. Okay, no more preaching. We're wrapping up here. I love you all. Have a beautiful day. I'm going to go ahead and post this so you guys can go back and watch this if you want. And I will see you guys in a few days. We're going to talk about Shia LaBeouf's charts one of these mornings. Or yeah, charts, because we're going to look at his transit chart and look at his birth chart. I definitely want to. I just find this guy so fascinating, and I find his chart so fascinating, and I just want to talk about it. We might talk about a couple of other charts too. Another chart that I wanted to take a look at that we have a confirmed time for is Rihanna, and then there was someone else, maybe Trump. I don't like that guy, but whatever. Maybe we'll look at his chart because I think there's just some really interesting, fascinating stuff that's happening in his chart. And yeah, Elisa Louise. I don't even know who that is. If I don't know who they are, I'm more than likely not going to look at it or consider it. You know? All right, my loves. El Mencho. Yeah, we don't have a confirmed birth time for him, unfortunately. I prefer to do chart readings on celebrities or notorious people that have a confirmed birth time. So that we can give it the most accurate reading possible. Oh, Alyssa Louise. Oh, the Olympic gold medalist. Yeah. Is that the one where she has like the piercing in her gums? Yeah, she's really cool. Um, if there's a confirmed birth time, yeah, we'll see. All right, my loves. I'll see you guys, okay? Take care. Have a good day. Bye.